Yo, what's going on, guys? It is your boy JT here coming at you with another New World video. Before I get too deep into this video, I just want to let you guys know that I am a bit sick, so if you hear some sniffles or some coughs or whatever, I'll try and cut most of it out. But I am just getting over a little bit of sickness, so please excuse me. But today I wanted to go over a couple of my favorite kind of niche New World builds that I've been playing lately. I've been Those of you who have seen my content before know that I traditionally just tank, so one of the builds I am going to show off today is a tank build. But I actually have 1.5, maybe 2-ish DPS builds to show you guys. So let's just jump right into the build. So the first build that I want to show off is what I'm currently wearing, is my BB Fire Staff. Now, I think that this build can go well with like a couple different artifacts, which is why it's kind of like a 1.5 to 2 builds type thing. So I'll show you what I'm currently rocking, and then I'll go over some alternatives if you don't want to rock this. So we'll start off showing the gear. Pay no attention to the gems that I have in my armor. I like very messy with my gems right now. So don't mind the gems, but here's what I'm rocking. So I've been messing around since I mostly use this on Hive of Gorgons, uh, with doing a ruby in my blunderbuss just to see how it feels. And I think the extra damage is kind of nice. I mean, maybe someone can fact check me on like damage if it's like actually better to go with the ruby for Hive since it's all Angry Earth. But I've been enjoying playing it with the ruby. It feels like it's more damage, and feeling is all that matters. But yeah, I think the best blunderbuss to use is the one from the worm, which is where I got this one. I just crafted it with sandworm materia. I think it's good because of refreshing move. It's the only way to get refreshing move on the blunderbuss that I'm aware of. So at a 725 blunderbuss, that is. So feels really good there. And then I just use Inferno because it gives me a little bit of bonus damage uh, on both weapons. Um, so Inferno is a nice backup, and I can always just throw down the dots for my Inferno. So I typically, throw my Fireball and my Meteor Shower out with Inferno. You can rock a bunch of different heart runes. The only one I don't love is Detonate, only because I'm bad, and whenever I click Detonate, the 20% rend kills me. So if you're better at the game than I am, which is probably many of you, Detonate would be good. But I like Firestorm. I also like Vines. Is pretty fun. I was messing around with the cannon. Was also kind of fun. Uh, and then you really just want an amulet that has empowered health and a protection on it. Is all you're looking at. I've been messing around with 2 different rings. So I'll either use a ring that has either thrust damage or the damage type that I'm using. So, like, for example, I could do fire damage on this ring, and then hardy and bloodletting. So this hoplite ring is, like, really good for this build, and I can get into why I like bloodletting a little bit later. The other ring that I've been messing around with, which I think might be better, is the elemental band. Um, and if I'm not using elemental band, I kind of like to just throw in endless thirst. But otherwise, just like an empowering toast, refreshing toast earring is pretty good. For the artifacts, or for the armor, I'm using Old Crown in this one. I think you can switch between either Old Crown or Attuned Leather Pants, depending. I just have my Attuned Leather Pants in a different build right now. I've got Hoplite Shirt. I would prefer not to have Arcane Harnessing, but I haven't got that far yet. I've got my gloves. Again, anointed potions could probably be something different, but I haven't got to upgrading all my pieces quite yet. I've got Leeching Shrapnel Blast. I think this is kind of like the Leeching Flurry of the Blunderbuss build, where it's like, if you're going to play high level content, like if you're doing Gorgs, or if you're doing maybe Worm, although I don't think people are going to let you play Blunderbuss and Worm. Or even like M3s, I think Leeching Shrapnel Blast is pretty necessary. It's just such a, like, you rotate to your Shrapnel Blast so often with Refreshing Move that you could just keep yourself topped off with health. Like, it's really solid. And then I just got pretty standard boots. Enchanted Ward, Refreshing Health, nothing too crazy there. So yeah, that is what we're rocking in this build. Now, a couple of things that you can switch in. Like I said, for armor artifacts, Old Crown and Attuned Leather Pants are kind of interchangeable for this build. You can kind of mess around with both. I think the consensus that I've heard from DPS is that Old Crown, you're a little bit more armor, whereas Attuned Leather Pants, you're a little bit more health, I think is what people say when they're switching between the two. So I think they're decently interchangeable. Another couple artifacts that you could mess around with is I've messed around a little bit with Nimble Coat. So if you have a Blunderbuss that doesn't have refreshing moves, so for example, I've used Pestilence a couple of times, you can throw Nimble Coat in. I think Nimble Coat only works if you're like specifically using a really powerful Blunderbuss that doesn't have refreshing move. It kind of makes up for not having refreshing move with like the additional cooldown. But otherwise, I would put Nimble Coat like a tier below Old Crown and Attuned Leather Pants. I would also, kind of equivalent to Nimble Coat, put Wing Leather Boots in there. I felt like Wing Leather Boots, you'll have to mess with your skill tree on the Blunderbuss a little bit, which we can get into a bit later. But if you mess with the skill tree, there is one of the things for Blunderbuss where as you reload, you gain haste. So with Wing Leather Boots, you can do some damage there. I believe that's probably the... I mean, I've tried a bunch of different artifacts. Like, I have tried Grey Wizard's Hat. I feel like it wasn't as good as I thought it would be. I have tried Vampire's Vestments with, like, a Blood Drinker build. If you're doing, like, open world ECR, Vampire Vestment with Blood Drinker, you will just never die. So it's kind of fun for that. But, like, if you're running like, M2, M3, Hive of Gorgon, Worm, like, I definitely wouldn't recommend, you know, suffocating your damage that much. But it is a pretty fun build for open world. And I haven't got to test this one yet, but I kind of have, like, an inkling of an idea that Lich Gloves might be good. So maybe I'll make an update in the future on Lich Gloves. But let's jump into the second half of this Blunderbuss build, which is this BB Lightning build. So this build was specifically optimized for Ancient Dungeons, so I've used this on both Ennead and Lazarus. And having Mjolnir to do the additional lightning damage, and then throwing a Topaz in your Blunderbuss, super strong. I felt like I was doing so much damage, especially on final boss in Lazarus. When you get him in that down phase, I was absolutely smoking him, even in like M3. Like, this felt like the strongest version of Blunderbuss build, but again, this specifically works into Ancients. I wouldn't recommend just like throwing out this build willy-nilly for any dungeon. I would specifically use it on Lazarus, Ennead. I'm probably forgetting there's another, probably like maybe Starstone as well on the ancient parts. You could throw it in there, but I thought it was really good. So yeah, we've gone over, you already know it's the same Blunderbuss, just a different gem. We've got Mjolnir in there. Again, we talked about Heart Rune. I don't have Empowered on my amulet for this set quite yet. As I said, lightning damage, hardy, bloodletting. Again, I haven't tested this build with Elemental Band yet, but I bet it would absolutely shred with Elemental Band. And then for this set, because I'm using Attuned Leather Pants, or I don't know if it's because of Attuned Leather Pants, but I do have a Silken Cocoon on this set, which also feels really good. If you can nab one of these, I think it's pretty good. Of course, Leashing Shrapnel Blast, as I said. I have a Lightning Harnessing in here as well, which kind of adds to the damage a little bit. And then I've got a Sundering Shockwave since I am using Hammer, just to do a little bit of rending. So those are kind of like, that's like my 1.5 Blunderbuss builds. Let's kind of run through weapon trees. I'm just going to run through the Blunderbuss weapon trees, because for like the Hammer or Fire Staff or whatever, like, they're not super important since I'm mostly trying to main hand my Blunderbuss. So I'll quickly run you guys through this tree. So I think there's two routes you can go. I think if you're the only Blunderbuss, I think something similar to what you're looking at right now is what you're going to want. You're going to want a combo of, you know, Grenade, Net Shot, and Shrapnel Blast. The only thing that I've been messing around with changing is, like I said, if you're running Wing Leather Boots, I think that you're going to want Run and Gun. I know that some people really like to take Fortifying Aggression. I've been preferring to take Future Endeavors for the stamina. It feels really nice to get your stamina back, and just have like the dodges. But you could also go with Fortifying Aggression. I think that this is also pretty good, the on a roll. And I believe you can also take Artillery. I don't think I've tested around with it too much, but you know, there's a couple small things you can change out. One thing I want to mention here is, for one of the reasons that I really like Bloodletting on this build is because of this net shot. The massive bleed that you're able to apply with net shot is the reason that I go Bloodletting on my ring, just to extend the duration of that bleed by a little bit. It does tick for quite a lot of damage. I know there's videos. There's another creator, Tundra, on YouTube, who has talked pretty extensively about like numbers and damage, so I won't get into that because that's just not my specialty. But if you want to know like the proper combo for Blunderbuss, I would definitely recommend checking out other videos on YouTube, because I'm not like super nerdy about it. This is just one of the builds, like a niche build that I just have fun with. But typically I'll start off with, you know, splitting grenade into a light attack, into a net shot, into a light attack, reload, into light attack, into shrapnel blast, and then you can pretty much rotate through your abilities with refreshing move. But yeah, I think that covers most everything Blunderbuss. There's a lot of different stuff that you can mess around and try. I think the thought process that I've used thus far for Blunderbuss is, when I'm thinking about what I want to pair with Blunderbuss for trying some of these like niche weird builds, is like Blunderbuss is my main weapon that I'm gonna be on for like 90% of every fight. And what can I pair with it that will like either boost my Blunderbuss or will add some sort of utility for my team? So just running through some of the weapons I've tried. You've seen my Inferno. You've seen Mjolnir. I think you could maybe get away with Finisher for the additional damage. I've tried using Deep Freeze as well, just to have an Ice Gauntlet for some utility for my team. Void Gauntlet is always a good option, where you can lay down Oblivions and throw out Essence Rupture. So stuff like that works pretty well with it. Even like throwing on Power Stone can be a pretty good option if you need the weakens. So yeah, I'm going to hop over to my other account now so I can show you the second, well, really the third now, actual build. So I will be right back. All right, we are back. I did forget that there's a quick one or two other things I want to run through with the Blunderbuss before I show you guys my next build real quick. I did not tell you guys attributes that you should be using, so let me quickly show you what I normally do. I don't currently have an additional intelligence piece, but I would recommend running 350 strength. I like to take 25 focus when I'm using either crown or attuned leather pants, and then I just dump the rest into intelligence. Again, someone smarter than me can tell you if going for the 25 dex is worth it. I've found that I don't think it is, but I haven't actually crunched any numbers, so I could just, my feeling could just be wrong. And then my intelligence will get up to 250 with food buffs. So ideally, I would be able to have 350, 300 if these, you know, 44 extra points that were in strength could drop down here to intelligence. But I need to get, you know, a different piece for my build in order to make that work. So that's what I would do for attribute. And then one last thing I wanted to run through is, I did mention a little earlier that if you're the only Blunderbuss, that I like to go the net shot. But if there's more than one Blunderbuss, I think that the people who are not net shot can go claw shot. Again, there's other videos out there kind of talking about the min-max of damage, so claw shot is a viable option, and I had it on this character, so I wanted to just throw that out there real quick for those of you who wanted to test out using claw shot. You basically just, in the tree, take the points that you were using in net shot and just move them over here, so it's really easy for your skill tree to fix that up. But let's jump into my final build that I have for the day, and it's going to be this build. Again, I would recommend ignoring my gems. This one I'm a little bit newer to. I really put this build together for my daily random mutations, and I also have a heavy version of this build that I've been using for Hive of Gorgon speedruns with my group. But we're going to go over the light tank version of it, just because that's what I've used more of. So basically all this build is it's tanking with Hatchet Greatsword. I think Greatsword is like one of the best like tank weapons by itself, especially if you're using Serenity. When you get in Defiant Stance on Serenity, you're just so gosh darn unkillable. So you can basically run Serenity plus whatever you want, like maybe just throw hands and go no weapon. Not actually recommended. But I really like having a hatchet that has Keen Berserk on it, and you can kind of just go into Berserk and just swing like a madman. Of course, if you're in light, you're going to have to dodge things every once in a while. But then, like I said, Serenity, you're just so tanky on Greatsword. It's nice to have Serenity in a lot of builds. I always like to have a Mending Stone form whenever I tank, and especially in light tank, it's really, really good. I've got you just need an amulet with protection health, and then probably either empowered or divine. Fortify would also be good if you can manage to get a fortify. I like Blood Drinker when I tank. I know some people say, oh, don't do Blood Drinker, you lose out on damage. Well, frick that. Listen, I've got 4,000 hours in this game. I've always been using Blood Drinker. Don't let the haters tell you otherwise. If you're tanking, throw on Blood Drinker. You're not there to do damage. You're there to hold aggro and live. And if you do those two things, keep your Blood Drinkers in. I'm the biggest Blood Drinker defender. I've had many people tell me Blood Drinker sucks, but many world records have tanks using Blood Drinker, so don't believe them. Then your earring, I mean, as is always with tanking, Fortifying Toast, Regeneration, and Despise is going to be your best three. I don't have that on this character, so I'm rocking Fortifying Toast, Despise with just Nimble because these Starstone earrings are really good. And then for armor, I don't think I'm doing anything particularly special right now. I think the only thing I would change in this if I had the piece was I would put in the heavy boots from Worm, the like Sand Lion Taurus, what these right here. Oh, I do have a pair, I'm just not using them. Well, I would slot these in. I think these are a pretty fun pair of boots to mess around with. Keen Speed with this build would be pretty fun. So yeah, that would be the one change I would make. And then there's probably some min-maxing I can do with my perks, but I'm just sitting on what I'm sitting on. There's nothing special on any of my pieces. Just got Hoplite Helm, Azoth Crystal Hand Covers, Hoplite Pants, and then I'm using Featherweight, which mine has Slash Conditioning. I think health is probably better, but don't take me up on that. Now for stat split for tanking, I always just go, ideally I have 25 focus, 300 con, 300 strength. Of course my pieces on this character are all messed up, so I end up having 334 strength, and then I just put the rest into con. But the 25 focus is really good for tanking. And weapon trees. So these are the trees I'm currently using. You can switch. There's some cases, like on Hive of Gorgons, where I will switch off of Torrent and throw in Infected Throw for the weaken and disease and whatnot, and also just another way to throw my hatchet. But a lot of times for like M1 daily randoms, I'll just throw on Torrent. I don't know. I'm not like a super good hatchet player, so the rest of this is kind of just like gut feeling what I thought would be good. So take that as you will. And then I'm also not the greatest greatsword player, so this is kind of just the tree I've been rocking with. The only big thing here is I think that I've really tried to make Undying Defiance work. It's probably a playstyle thing of why it can't work. I think just having Refreshing Move on Serenity and then Unrelenting Onslaught is so nice. You get your cooldowns back so fast. So you can pretty much just like start a clump, Calamity, and then just smack away until you have your Calamity back up, and Calamity, and sometimes you can throw in a Rupture when you want to, and yeah, it's just super nice. So yeah, those are some of the more niche builds I've been playing on New World. So Hatchet, Greatsword for tanking, and then a slew of different Blunderbuss builds. If you guys want to actually see me throw together my Blunderbuss builds, I do have like 6 of them. that I could throw together, and I could throw some gameplay. But let me know. Hopefully you guys enjoyed some of these niche builds, and maybe you guys will go try them out for yourselves. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day. Peace out, swaggers.